Morning.
Mr. Alley, who are you looking for?
First of all, Judge, if I could talk to the attorneys involved, we may not need any testimony.
Okay, just Ms. Zavala, and that's it.
Oh, then, Your Honor, if I could just have a second with Miss Martin in a breakout room with Miss Zavala, please.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, Ms. Martin is a sole managing conservator, but is not a parent, and so for the family code, she's not entitled to a court-appointed attorney. That's why there's no other attorney involved. All right, so you all should be getting that prompt to go to room 1 department versus Regina Martin. We're here today on a request for court-ordered services. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties, and Ms. Taylor is making our record this morning. All right, if you all want to go ahead and make announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Todd Albee on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present, ready to proceed. And I believe we have an agreement with Miss Martin so that we'll just be able to announce an agreement today in lieu of any testimony.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Christopher.
Okay. All right, and as Mr. Albee stated, Ms. Martin is present today. All right, real quickly, I brought in someone identified as Abby Madrid. Ms. Madrid, can you tell me what case you're here for today?
For the Martin case for FCT.
Okay, all right, then you're in the right place. All right. Okay, Mr. Albee, if you want to go ahead and announce what you all agreed to.
Thank you, Your Honor. The department would like to announce that Miss Martin has agreed to work services as outlined in the petition and made into a family plan of service. I believe that's already been completed and is on file, Your Honor. Specifically, those services would include intensive family-centered treatments from the St. Francis Ministries, individual counseling, family counseling, parenting classes. She will sign releases to allow us access to her medical records and to Christopher's medical records, and she would allow us access into the home during the time that she's working these services.
Okay. And Ms. Martin, you are muted, but is that your agreement, ma'am? Okay. I can't hear her, but she's nodding in the
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Thank you, ma'am. All right, and Ms. Zavala?
Yes, Your Honor, I do believe this would be in the best interest of Christopher.
Okay, very good. All right, then, based on the agreement and on the information that's been presented to the court, I would find that it is in the best interest of Christopher for the family to participate in these services. Ms. Martin, I appreciate your cooperation. I hope that we can offer some things to help in this situation. And I just, again, appreciate your cooperation in this process. You understand Ms. Zavala's role in the case and that she represents Christopher, but she may be reaching out to you from time to time.
Yes, Your Honor.
She needs access to him and to the home potentially and all that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Then I will order the services as requested. I'll sign the order and we will have what we call a compliance hearing on July 2nd of 2024. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. That's just kind of a check-in, Ms. Martin, to see how things are coming along. Are we making progress? Do we need to add something? Do we need to continue something? You know, just to see where we stand. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then I'll see you back in July. And I appreciate everybody logging in this morning. Thank y'all. And Ms. Martin, I wish y'all the very best of luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Everybody we're going to have. Let me talk with Mr. Trout. I guess I need to talk with you and Ms. Zavala in a breakout room. And Ms. Zavala, I don't know, is there somebody you need to ask some questions of just before we go in there as far as?
Is my conflict? I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. We're here today scheduled for our adversary hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Several things have come to the court's attention. Mr. Taylor, who is court appointed to represent the mother, Harley Lynch, is unable to be present today because of medical reasons. And the department does not show we have service on Ms. Lynch nor on Mr. Dickinson yet, the father, who is incarcerated. Ms. Lynch is not present in my waiting room. And I know Ms. Zavala's got some concerns about placement and some difficulties they're having, and she has some questions. I think maybe to discuss, and maybe Stacy, that might be more appropriate for y'all to talk about that in a breakout room. We're going to have to reset the case. And so Ms. Katie, let's look for a date. My concern is we don't have anybody here to agree to a 14-day extension. So I think we've got to reset in 7 days. So that looks like the 16th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Does that at least work for those of you that I have here? I don't know. We'll have to find out a little bit more about Mr. Taylor, whether I'm going to need to substitute somebody else in on that. But all right, for now, let's just set for the 16th at 1. I'll put you all in a breakout room to let you talk about some of those issues. I don't feel like, since I'm not making any ruling on the case yet, I don't think I can make any kind of ruling about some of these issues. So I think if it's something you all can talk about, that would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ms. Zavala and Mr. Trash, you guys can go back to 1, and I'll put, who all do you want me to put in there with you? Mr. Rodriguez
And Ms. Joy. And go ahead and
review
put
hearing
Stacy
in
Brown
each
in there,
case. We had been set for final, but I had indicated to everyone in advance of today's hearing that I would grant an extension in the case. Mr. Trout, have we calculated a new dismissal date?
October 11th of 24, Your Honor. And Judge, is Miss Lucero out there?
She is not. She
Okay.
had emailed earlier.
Yeah.
She had something in another court and was afraid she would not be able to make this, but since it was going to be a review, she was comfortable not being present.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else with regard to the extension, Mr. Trout?
No, ma'am. I think we're going to, work on getting family counseling going with mom and children. And also, as we said, in the request for that, see how mom's criminal issues that she's got going, her revocations that have been filed, out what's going to happen with those. But at a later date, we tried to get a settlement conference together. We had a date, but then there were some dockets for the district courts that parties had to be at that day, so we weren't able to get it done. But we will be asking down the road a little bit for mediation, Your Honor.
Okay. All right then. All right. So for today, then we'll go ahead and let's just go ahead and take everybody's announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Cassie Kopic is my primacy specialist. We're present and ready. And Ms. Kopic, your camera's turned sideways. If you could, there you go. Thank you.
Jeff Hill on behalf of the mother, Sis Contreras, in all 3 cases. She's seated behind me. We are ready.
Natalie Archer, also for the mother as guardian ad litem, present and ready.
Judge T.D. Hammonds in cause number unknown, absent father, Ashraf Al-Mook Beal. I've had no success in tracking him down. I'm ready to proceed.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of the children.
Janelle Garrett with CASA, and my advocate is Dina Turk.
All right. Thank you. Okay, then I guess let's go ahead and get an update from St. Francis and as far as a review is concerned today.
So we had the initial family therapy appointment last week. There's another one scheduled for the 19th with Steve Jennings. Mom doesn't work at Little Caesars anymore, but she continues to work at the other place at the Affiliated Foods. The kids are still doing well in the foster home. That's about it. I did send to the Efren Hernandez for court today, and I did send him an attorney form, but he hasn't filled it out and sent to me. I don't know if he sent it to the court though.
All right, you cut out just a little bit. Who you're saying you had contact with?
Efren Hernandez, the father of Grace. And then the father of John, Ruben Mendoza, he has been assigned a consulate worker from the Mexican consulate. She's trying to assist with us finding him as well. And then I don't have any location on the Ashraf.
Where is Mr. Hernandez?
He's in Mexico. I don't have an address for him. He gave me an email, but he just told me he lived in Mexico.
So the consulate, when they have assigned someone to communicate with Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, to assist in finding him.
But they have not located him yet.
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, and how did the first session of family counseling go?
As far as I know, it went fine. Steve didn't really tell me anything after the session. It was last Thursday.
All right. And are we still trying to finish up any other services?
The counseling, and we really want her to get her probation under control because we don't know what's going to happen. If she gets revoked, then she's going to have to go to ISF.
And all right, so the only service Mom really lacks for us is just the family counseling.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Cobby, I know she started a parenting, then wasn't doing it, then did an online one. Is the parenting taken care of?
She did parenting class. I think with having the therapy with Steve, he can give her tools that she needs to, interact with the kids. So that'll help her hands-on parenting and, the other stuff.
Mr. Hill, do you all have any knowledge about her probation situation?
Some. So I spoke to her probation officer this morning. That is correct. They do want to send her to ISF. But I don't think, and on the surface, I practice criminal law as well, but on the surface, that would probably be the appropriate remedy. But I doubt the probation officer knows the whole story behind her car accident and the recovery and all that stuff, because the allegation, she had a car accident in late September, was in the hospital for 10 days out, went back in for another week with a pulmonary embolism and was in bad shape, for quite some time after that, just in physical recovery. Well, she missed her probation meetings in October, November, and December. And so, like I say, I doubt probation knows what happened and what the backstory is and why she missed. And even if probation would not be satisfied with that excuse, a judge certainly might be when the backstory is told. And also, if the judge also realizes what's going on with their CPS case and the fact that a likely 4-ish month stay at ISF at this point might very well result in her losing her kids, I would say there's probably an awful good chance a judge would not send her to ISF. Now, of course, that's just me speculating based on experience, but that's my opinion of where that might be going. Also spoke to Mike Watkins this morning, who represents her, and he was just appointed a couple weeks ago, and he hasn't spoken to her because she's got a new phone number and he didn't have it. He hadn't been able to find her yet. So I did give Mike some backstory. And hopefully if Cassie would be willing to go testify at a revocation hearing, explain what's on the line, explain the hard work that the SIS has done getting to this point, I think that would be helpful for the criminal judge to know, and in my opinion would lean towards the judge not sending her to ISF and maybe finding some other remedy like an extension or something.
What about, my concern has been, well, pretty much all the way through the case, but my concern has been Mom's ability to stand independently and to provide for the children. And this is probably more a question for Ms. Kopic. I mean, are we seeing any improvement in that situation? I know she was dependent on Mr. No as far as rent and housing, and so.
Judge, if I can interrupt, I can say that Ms. Contreras does have a job. She works full-time and affiliated. She has a car and she has a 2-bedroom apartment. And she sent me pictures yesterday of her apartment that looks very appropriate for her and the kids. So I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's all right. Is that her own vehicle?
Yes.
She's not at risk at losing that of somebody taking that away from her.
She says no, it's her vehicle.
All right. And is the lease in her name at the apartment?
Yes.
Okay.
I think a concern that we have too is that sis will give her money to Mr. No, and then he is like taking care of her bills, and then she is fearful that he won't pay the bills. And that was something that she had expressed to me.
Yeah. Like, is it the beginning of this, or-
Ms. Kapik, when was that expressed to you regarding the money that you just talked about?
She told me that on Thursday. There also is some concerns with, because Steve Jennings was doing, therapy with them together, couples counseling with Jackson, and they have a lot of trouble getting along with one another. He'll pick at her, she'll pick at him, and they argue a lot. So it's kind of a rocky relationship.
So let me ask, why can she not pay her own bills with her own income?
Because it's hard for me to do.
Speak up, please.
Because it's hard for me to do with my disability. I don't understand how to do it.
Did you hear that, Judge?
I did.
That's why I had account and she gave me money for and I paid for them out of my account. Yeah. She gave me money to pay rent and stuff.
So it's more of a financial literacy problem,
And
sounds like.
And Judge, I'm assuming that's Mr. No in the background that's talking.
It is, Your Honor. Or Daniel, both of you.
Well, but they are still actively engaged in couples counseling?
Couples counseling?
No.
It's done. I have the papers.
Okay. No, Judge, she says it's done, but I don't know if that exactly what that means, but no, they're not actively engaged right now.
Steve won't do couples counseling with them anymore, but they're not going to do that anymore.
They're not going to do it because they've decided not to do it?
Steve isn't going to do it anymore because he doesn't feel like it's effective. Because of the arguing, the bickering, and all that.
But they do live in separate residences.
Well, is there any assistance that St. Francis can give mom as far as setting up, bill payment and things like that, where she's not dependent on Mr. No?
That's something we could look into helping her with. She did have a parent support worker that was helping her with stuff, but he actually quit. So, but I can help her try to do that.
Well, let's just take a look and see what it looks like. I mean, how many bills does she have? Can they be put on some kind of auto payment? Does she have a checking account? Let's look a little deeper into this topic and just see, is there anything we can do to assist her be more independent in that regard?
She doesn't have a checking account. She gets her money on a card.
Okay. Like on a debit card?
Yes.
Would it be
Debit cards
possible
not like having a bank account, having a checking account anymore. Ms. Archer, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would it be possible for her to get a new parent support worker?
Yes, we can do that.
I think that'd be really helpful in this case.
I agree. Since we're extending, we've got the extra time. I'd really like to see if we can't get a parent support worker and maybe somebody to help mom with some budgeting and paying bills, how she can schedule bills, some things like this.
I was gonna ask that too. Ms. Copy, is there any sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, financial stability classes or something like that, that we can get mom into that works toward budgeting and finances and how to set all that up?
That's something I can look into if there's a class on that. I know TPC helps with like and Panhandle Community Services also helps people like get on HUD and things like that, and like career counseling or whatever you want to call it. But I can look into that and see what we can get her set up with.
Okay. Mr. Hill, do y'all have anything further?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And Ms. Archer?
We want to ask if this is gonna happen. Oh, am I? Sorry, I didn't know if I was muted or not. I was wondering at what point we might be able to have some visits in her new place now that it's very clean and age appropriate for all the kids. Would that be doable? Since still reunification.
We usually, the kids live in Silverton, so we usually do the visits in like Plainview or Tulia, but we could look into that. It might be easier when school's out though.
At our last hearing, St. Francis was going to revisit the denied home study for Mr. No. And I was just wondering if they revisited that.
I talked to my supervisor about it. That's not something we are going to revisit. It was denied because of his history with the department, his criminal history, and their relationship is it seems like he's kind of controlling over her. So if we put the kids there, that would be a concern for us, that he would try to, control her over, having her kids.
But you did discuss it with your supervisor.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Archer, again, as far as anything else other than the visitation, and Ms. Kopic, I agree. I mean, it probably will ease up the difficulty of doing that once school is out. So maybe we can kind of target to try to get some in-home visits done maybe when school is out, as long as things are still going okay.
That would be great. I just feel like I'd like to see what how the family functions in the home again and how the kids react and so forth.
Okay.
I think if we wait till the summer, that would also give them at least a few more sessions of the family counseling before those visits are moved, and that would be good.
Here, trailed off, Daniel.
I'm sorry. I said the fact that get some more family therapy counseling sessions in before we move into the visits in home would be good if we could wait till the summer to get those started once the children are out of school.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hammonds, anything today?
No, Judge, I'll send another letter to the only address I have for him. I sent one. Nothing came back. I'll send another one.
All right. And Ms. Lucero indicated she'd had no contact with her client at this point in time. And then obviously we've had no request yet for an attorney appointment on Mr. Hernandez. Okay, Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, I was able to visit with the kids in placement. In general, they're all doing well. The two older know how to poke at each other, but they're working on that and doing well. Grace is active and on the go. So altogether, it's a lot with the three, but they are doing very well. I do think that it would be helpful to get more of those family therapy sessions in. And then hopefully in the summer, I think it makes sense to see how they would do in mom's home for visitation.
Okay. All right. So that's a goal. That's a target. When kids are out of school. All right. And CASA.
I don't know if she's having trouble unmuting or what, but she's reporting that the kids are doing well in the home. She has gone to the visits with mom, and mom is very appropriate during the visits. The visits go well. We've got the same concern, just the family counseling and what might happen with probation, but otherwise CASA is in agreement with the family therapy. And then the home visits during, come summer, just see how everything goes. But otherwise, our recommendation is just to remain in their placement at this time.
All right. Thank you. All right. Then, as previously indicated, I'll grant the extension in the case, find extraordinary circumstances exist to support that. And we'll set the new dismissal date of October 11th of 2024. I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator of all the children. Find that there would be a continuing or ongoing danger to return the children home today. But that the department's continuing to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family, and we're still on that goal. So when the kids get out of school, let's try to increase visits and get the kids back in the home with mom for some visitation. And I really want St. Francis to look at working with mom on this, budgeting and bill pay and, kind of the financial side of things of her life. So I'll see everybody back for our next review hearing on August 6th of 2024. That's a 9 o'clock docket. And then our final is scheduled for October 8th of 2024 on a 9 o'clock docket.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Ms. Hubbard.
Ms. Brown, this is a question. Has St. Francis looked into having a standing kind of class or something in that very thing, bill pay, budgeting? I mean, about 98% of our cases, people need that. In my opinion.
That's something we definitely can look into for sure. Yeah.
If you run that up the food chain to Micah or whoever, but I mean, I just think that would be such a beneficial service to, so many of our folks.
100% agree.
Is that ever?
I've ordered it before. I don't know whatever came of it, but I don't know how they got it done. But it's to me, that is a common denominator problem.
Mm-hmm.
In rational behavior stuff in those classes, is there none of that taught in there? I know at one point when I was doing some criminal work, some of the rational behavior stuff, part of it was some financial stuff in there and how to deal with those, on a rational basis. So especially when it was for like theft cases and stuff like that, that type of training. I didn't know if there was any add-on or something you could do in rational behavior that would do that or not.
I mean, I would have to reach out to Troy Timmons' office on that. I'm not 100% sure if they talk about budgeting.
I mean, I think they probably address it, but the problem is that's a one-day class.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need somebody sitting down with these folks, several months in a row, month to month, saying, okay, all right, you got your paycheck in now. What bills do we have due?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to schedule those? Do you have a checking account? If you don't, do you have a debit card? Then can you, they can set stuff up on auto draft on a debit card, just as well. So I just think I think this is a repeat problem we have.
And Judge Miss Smith just put in there that Goodwill at Lubbock offers a financial literacy class, and she thinks they listed as on umbrella classes also. That might be.
Okay. I would just really like St. Francis to take a look at some of that. Because, I mean, I just see this as a recurring, problem for our families.
I will send out an email today on that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Ethan. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
You might check with Goodwill too. I know they do computer classes and stuff like that. They may have something like that too.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's
Sasha was saying, that's where it was offered in Lubbock, was through Goodwill, and that maybe it might be as well in Amarillo.
Well, I mean, those problems overlap and cause so many other problems. Evictions and no money to get the car registered. And, I mean, it's just, we all know. I don't need to tell you guys.
I just checked and they do offer them in Amarillo as well. They offer a lot of services for career counseling and financial budgeting and stuff.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it because, and I'd like for you guys to talk about that and seriously discuss whether that needs to be added to, a lot of our normal service plans. I know it's one more thing, but honestly, I think it could be more important than some of the things we ask them to do.
Well, I think everyone can benefit from that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody can look in to see, how many sessions is it? What kind of time commitment is it? That kind of thing. And then I would be very interested in knowing. We are here today on a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under a good cause and finding an agreement of the parties. And excuse me, we are also live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Amy Prater is my primacy specialist. We're present, ready.
Claire Grammer on behalf of the Welches. We are present and ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Thomas. And I know we're trying to figure out, but if Thomas were to be here, I think maybe for part of it, but maybe not for all, but it was not my understanding that he was going to be here.
Okay, Ms. Guidry, Alicia Guidry, if you could unmute your device.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, yes, ma'am. My name is Alicia Guidry. I'm one of Thomas's caregivers here at his placement. Thomas is not here with us. We weren't under the, no one reached out to us and let us know that he needed to attend today's hearing. So he's not here with us.
Okay, no, it's not that he needed to attend. We were just trying to determine whether he was there or not. So, okay. All right then. What do we have new since the court report was filed?
Yes, Your Honor. Thomas is still currently at Starry Eye RTC, where he continues to have explosive behaviors. His triggers are very unpredictable. His behaviors are very unpredictable. He continues to be assaultive towards staff, other children, and teachers at school. Thomas was also given 45 days of DEAP, I believe, just as a disciplinary action for the continued behaviors. It's my understanding that a contracted school placement is being sought after in Houston just to be able to meet his needs. It's my understanding that hasn't been written into his IEP yet, and they're just kind of on a trial run with the DEAP right now. Thomas also is recovering from a broken clavicle. It's my understanding that Thomas was in an episode, and I've heard different things, that Thomas was also using his shoulder kind of to run against the wall, and that's how he broke it. I've also been told that he was put in different holds. We're not sure how exactly he broke his collarbone, but he is still recovering.
Was there any investigation into that?
Yes, ma'am, there was. I believe it's still pending right now.
All right. So what is, I read that the genetic testing resulted in a malformation of this particular gene. Is there any long-term plan on that? Anything that can be done?
With what I've heard from Thomas's physicians and placement is that we don't really know a whole lot about that specific genetic malformation to be able to associate that with his behaviors. I have applied on behalf of the family for Social Security. I sent off that application a couple of weeks ago. I've been told that that's not a for sure plan, but we just have to make it clear that Thomas's behaviors are his disability.
Okay, so I mean, it seems to me and I'm not going to say this right, but the one-on-one situation with education may just be a necessity. I mean, I understand he's in DAEP now, but once that ends, then we're right back to where we were, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so if we have another incident, then it's back to DAEP. I mean, it seems like a revolving door.
Yes, that's kind of why they're looking into a more privatized contracted placement to be able to care for Thomas's needs. That plan is still in the works right now. The Houston ISD is still evaluating for that. I did reach out to some of our foster care liaisons here in Amarillo, just about how Amarillo ISD can support him with coming home. I have not heard anything back from them. I'm unsure there's much that they can do until he's actually enrolled.
But when you're talking about a contracted placement, I mean, that's not actual his physical placement. You're talking about just an educational setting.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay.
And
All right.
is my understanding on those, Judge, the school district, I think, seeks those out and pays for those, and then that will be contracted to the school system for that to happen.
And Daniel, that's because the school district can't keep him in their school district program. That's why they contracted out, so he's not a liability for the school district.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're not going to really share with us about what they could or couldn't do until he's enrolled and they actually got to reach out and do that. Good.
Judge, if you want, my clients did reach out to AISD special ed professionals throughout our area, not just foster care liaisons. Would you like to have Amy explain to you kind of what she researched and what she found regarding what's in Amarillo?
Yeah, sure. I just want to, Ms. Prater, is there anything else that you want to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right then. Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Welch?
All right, Ms. Welch, let me just ask you, it's easier for me to do a question answer form. You and your husband did seek the advice through AISD special ed professionals and did meet with multiple people. My understanding is y'all met with Kim Phillips, who is the director for the base program at Paramount Terrace, where Thomas was previously. Is that correct?
He was at the base program at Paramount Terrace. Yes.
And
we did meet in person with Kim. It was through messages.
Okay. And then you also reached out to Sam Houston, where he would be if he were to come back, correct?
In 6th grade. Yes.
Yeah. And then y'all reached out to the former principal at Paramount Terrace, where he was in the prior base program with Talisa Greenhouse. And what grade would he be coming back into?
He's finishing 5th, so he would be starting 6th.
And then y'all met with Tanya Garner, the former diagnostician and specialist at Margaret Wells. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then Erica Howes, the special ed teacher who would be probably working with him next year at Sam Houston. Is that correct?
Yes.
Based on the research that y'all have done and the meetings that you've had, without telling me anything that anyone said for the purposes of hearsay, do you have any type of educational information to add based on what it would be like, what you would do as parents with regard to his schooling if he had to come home?
Well, from them, he would be placed, they would have an ARD and they would likely place him in a base program again, because that's what he left from. And at Sam Houston, they're struggling with placing a one-on-one, like the judge said. they have a student there that works with Erica House who's in a one-on-one situation and it's not working well, according to her directly. So they don't have a setup immediately ready for someone with Thomas's needs. They just have the base program.
Which was what was not successful previously at Paramount Terrace.
Exactly. Yes.
What was the base program? You're familiar with it. I know you are because y'all did multiple things through that program while he was there previously, prior to coming into care.
Small classroom settings, so maybe 5 or less students and 2 or 3 aides. It was not a one-on-one situation. Anytime it wasn't a one-on-one, he would have problems. And then he continues to do that same setup. He continued to do that same setup in Houston and continued to need the one-on-one and have problems if he didn't have it.
The reason he's in DAEP is because he assaulted a teacher. Is that correct?
Multiple assaults over the course of suspension, 4 suspensions, and each one was from an assault on a staff member or teacher.
Did you recently attend an IEP with Ms. Prater and the school district liaisons down there, as well as a surrogate parent down in Houston for the Houston ISD school district?
Yes.
And tell me about what happened at the IEP.
It was an ARD MDR. It was an emergency meeting to figure out what to do with Thomas, since the base program and at Shady Dale, they could not manage him and keep others safe, their staff or students. And they decided to do the 45 days at DAP as a kind of consequence for his actions, even though we recognize that his behaviors are his disability. So it sort of was a consequence for his disability, but at the same time, they knew that they had to take that step if they were moving toward contract placement. There was nowhere else to go next step except DAP.
Was the contract placement information provided to you through that IEP program, or the IEP or the ARD MDR IEP that y'all attended? They kind of explained to you how that would look or what that would look like?
No, it was just a kind of, we'll deal with that if and when the DAP doesn't work.
Do you have concerns with him not having anything in place if he were to be placed here in Amarillo?
Yes.
And do you feel like that you or your husband or anybody that you've been in contact with has some sort of magic, or even not necessarily use the word magic, appropriate educational setup for him, since he's struggling even with what he's got right now?
No, my sense is that if Houston is struggling to find a place for him, we don't even have the resources they have. So I don't have a sense that there's a perfect placement for him here.
Due to his recent and intensified aggressions, his level of care has been raised. Is that your understanding, that you've discussed that with Amy?
No, not officially. I mean, we've never discussed an official leveling.
Okay.
But if you just follow the guidelines of DFPS levels, he fits a certain level very clearly.
Yes. And based on your experience in the last few months that we've been dealing with this, the RT is probably one of the most restrictive and intense levels that a child in care can be placed. And he still is struggling with that type of 24-hour supervision. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you been able to talk with, and I know we have Ms. Guidry here from Starry, and that he's assaulted multiple people at staff members there. What has been the course of action to try and curb that behavior or keep it from happening?
Are you asking me or Ms. Guidry?
I was going to ask you, because I know you've had meetings with them. I know that y'all have all been working together.
Yes, I feel like they de-escalate. They try to kind of keep him contained so he doesn't hurt himself or others. They do a good job of that. They have him in therapy. He's in group therapy and I think individual therapy. I feel like Starry is doing everything that I would suggest or hope that they would do. And I think they care for him with firmness and love at the same time. And they give him lots of chances. And I think they do a great job with him. But I think that they continually struggle with the fact that his behaviors are, like we said at the beginning, Amy Prater said, explosive, unpredictable, assaultive.
At this time, I know that we're on a monitored return, and the plan had been kind of talked about him coming home soon at this time, based on what you know about his educational situation, as well as what the behaviors have looked like, do you think it's in his best interests to be placed back in your home where y'all have the basic ability to, but just basic level of care to care for him?
I do not, because of both his continued problems at the RTC in his residence and the continued problems at school. I don't think that we have a plan in place for how to even get to the level of care that he's with now back home.
And given the circumstances, it was really hard for him to make the transition from moving from y'all's house to a different placement. Do you think him coming home, and then if he blew the placement, if he blew it here, he'd have to go right back to where he was? It would just further traumatize him.
Yes, I think that is true. Can you ask Matt if he wants to add anything? I don't know if it's okay, but.
Do you want me to, Matt, are you on there? Can you hear me?
Excuse me, I am.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to what we've talked about with Amy, so that way the judge has a good idea about what's going on with Thomas and y'all's ability to manage these aggressive, predictable behaviors?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm kind of losing my voice. I got that crud that's going around and it's wreaking havoc on me, but I'll try to get through it. Yeah, I mean, I have serious concerns are where we were and the things that led up to us having to take this course of action was unbelievably difficult and traumatizing for all of us, including our other children. And most importantly for Thomas, the behaviors that we were unable to manage continue to manifest down there. We've seen no reason to believe why they would be any different other than he's bigger. I don't know what the solution is. I just know that placing him back at home and just saying, well, he did well at home, let's try it, isn't a workable solution. I get the feeling that I don't believe anybody here is actually saying that, but I want to reiterate that let's wait and see and try it out is disastrous. We're going to be right back to where we started. We're going to re-traumatize the kid. I can't iterate enough how much we want him home and we want it to work out, but his brain timeline is not our timeline. And I don't know what that means legally and what we need to do, but he is not ready. He will continue to be assaultive here. Some sort of a step down if it has to go that way, an intermediary placement, whatever workable solution that is, but it will not work out if it's just, well, time for him to be home. I think that's going to be a disaster.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Welch. Is it your understanding that, and you and I've talked about this with you and your wife, I've talked to Mr. Trout, since we are at the end of the timeline that the state allows for us to continue care for a child, the only thing left is a permanent managing conservatorship with the department, and with y'all continuing to help and do what you can as far as visits and consistency and therapy. But for right now, you want his best interest to be served by staying where he has one-on-one 24-hour supervision.
Yes, I want to make sure it's not that I want that, but I think it's what's best for him. I think it's a horrible thing to say, but
I apologize if I worded it incorrectly. I know no one wants their kid to be in the most restrictive environment possible, but do you think it's probably his healthiest option, given the fact that he has still struggled so desperately to just maintain a daily existence?
I think it's probably his best, and maybe I don't want to get hyperbolic, but it's the best and probably his best chance for survival.
Because he continues to do self-harming behaviors, like ramming himself into a wall, just like he did at home, or jumping out of, I remember you told me a story about how he would jump out of a window and just would
my
do.
parents' house. Yeah, in Kansas City. Well, and absconding. He still runs, I guess, the other, I don't know, a week or two ago, I don't remember. He was at the barber shop and he just ran away down in Houston, down the street. He did the same here several times where he showed up. We couldn't find him. And he came home in the back of a police car and he was, 5 blocks away across a busy street. So for that, as far as his, immediate safety, but also so he continues to be on a path of therapy and not consequences. And I feel like if he comes here, it'll be another revolving door of, well, he's got to go to AEP and then he'll come back and then he'll go to AEP for more consequences and he'll come back. And then eventually I'm terrified that it'll end up being eventually juvie and start being down that pathway.
Understood.
Needs therapy.
Have you been able to communicate with his therapist, Eric Burrell? Have you and Amy been able to be in some of the?
I'll take that one. We've seen therapy notes. We don't communicate directly with him that much, but I've seen therapy notes from him. And, it's sometimes Thomas participates in therapy, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he absconds from therapy, sometimes he stays. It's not really making a lot of progress. He can articulate things when he's calm that he should do or wants to do, but when his emotions get the better of him, that's not able to be enacted. So that's pretty much what we determine. He's still in therapy, but it's not really moving him forward.
Is it mainly just helping him deal with coping mechanisms for the anger outbursts and trying to help him make better decisions?
Yes.
So it's pretty basic at this point. And given the fact that he's really young, I mean, his brain has a lot of developing left to do, even with his genetic disorder. Would you agree?
Yes.
I know you've talked a lot with Amy and Amy Prater. You are an Amy, but Amy Prater. And I know that we've discussed a lot. And Zavala has actually been to your home to be able to see him in a home setting, guys. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Amy's seen him at home and Stacy's seen him at home. How has that gone?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking you, Amy Welch.
Okay. When he's at home, he tries very, very hard to keep the behaviors in check. And he hasn't absconded. He hasn't assaulted anyone. And, both Amy and Stacy have been in our house and they see that he's, enjoying himself. He's happy there. He feels loved. He loves his pets. The visits go well. It's always hard for him to go back and kind of start over. But yeah, it's a little bit like a vacation because we're not pushing him to go to school or go to therapy or go to a doctor visit. That's all taken care of in the one-on-one setting at the RTC.
Have you and the department discussed maybe a new placement that would be closer, like in Lubbock, such as like Rafters or some of those other places that do have more equine therapy? They've got horticulture therapy. Have you talked with the department about that?
Yes, a little bit. And we think that would be wonderful to have him closer and in those kind of places. But, Matt even put a call into Flyers to see if they would respond and we never got the call back. But, we have talked a little bit about that with the department, with Amy. Oh, and also with Stacy.
Okay, I pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, I think everybody can acknowledge this is a really difficult situation. And there's no question in my mind that Amy and Matt love Thomas, and they want what's best for him. There was a big push right at the end of spring break to see if Thomas is doing well in these visits, can we just see how it goes? Place him here. And there was a big push for that. But we've got several logistical problems. We don't have a whole lot of answers. The only two concrete things that I could point to in terms of helping this move forward is, Amy's push to try to get Social Security disability. I think that could provide sometime long-term in the future, some sort of financial assistance if he comes home to Amy and Matt in terms of care, having some extra hands and some care. But we all know that process takes a long time in terms of Social Security disability. The other issue is school. So with Houston, this is a incredibly difficult situation for Houston ISD, and they've got a whole bigger range of students than we do here. It's my understanding that if his need for contract education is written into his plan, actually written in, then if he then transfers from Houston to Amarillo, then Amarillo would have to honor that. So Houston has not yet written that into the plan. Houston is checking out this DAP, and are finding they need more than that. So my hope is before we finish this school semester, that could be written into his plan. If he were to come back here to Amarillo, we need a lot of time and effort to get him set up at school. So if he can finish at Houston, get that written into his plan, come here, once he's actually in AISD, that's when we're going to get all hands on deck in terms of trying to figure out what the next move is. But if we move him too quickly, then the language doesn't get written into his plan, if all of that makes sense. So I think, he does really substantially better on visits, but every time he's here on a visit, it is just like Amy said, it is for fun. It's not for going to school. It's not for doing anything where he has to be told no. And I do agree that if originally we were thinking, well, let's place him back and let's try. But I do agree that a second removal would be incredibly difficult on Thomas. I mean, on everybody, but it kind of feels like it would destroy him. So I don't know that we've got a whole lot of answers. I don't know that it'll be a whole lot better. But if we can at least get those two things, and one's already in the works, the Social Security and working on the education plan. But I don't know how we do that without getting the PMC to the department.
Judge, I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys really quick. I have Mr. Eric, his therapist, on the phone. He is available to attend. Would you like me to send him the link really quick?
I mean, that would be fine.
Okay, let me send it to him right now.
But basically, we're in a situation where every single person wants what's best for them. We just don't have a whole lot of answers.
Well, do we have any inkling that we might get that from Houston ISD by the end of the year?
So I think we need to push for that. I think we need to call for another ARD meeting, now that he's been in this program. If Houston thinks he's leaving, they may not write that language in there. But if we don't get it in there, then Amarillo has to start completely over and has to try, go back to square one and try all the programs. So I think we need to push really hard to have another ARD meeting before the end of the school year.
And Judge, if I may ask a couple of things, I guess, be the best way to say it. Earlier, Ms. Welch said that when they met with Amarillo ISD, that if he came back up here, his ARD would be back to base. My understanding, it would stay at what Houston has it at right now because it's already been written in. So I could be wrong on that, but that is my understanding of it, is that Amarillo ISD would honor, and just as Mr. Bala said, if it's written into his plan, when he comes up here, it would be in place. I think that's the same thing with his, don't think if he came to Amarillo right now, he'd be on a base program.
He'd go into DAEP.
He would go into the DAEP like he is in Houston. And then Amarillo ISD would be working with setting it up instead of Houston setting it up.
Daniel, do you know if CPS has reached out to North Heights to see if they can have one-on-one for him? Because North Heights is the DA.
I don't know. Ms. Prater may be able to answer that. I know that she's reached out to Amarillo ISD, and it's kind of one of those, as long as he's in Houston ISD, we're not doing anything with it. They can't, programs up here aren't going to set up school programs for somebody that's in another school district right now. They're not going to waste their efforts on a kid that's not even in this region. Now, once he's in the region, they can start working on those type of things. But if he is not, then they can.
So the DAP is temporary. It's only 45 days. So it's not like he's permanently placed there, right? So when he went back, he's in base. So the base.
No, we understand that. What we're saying is if he got moved tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
and he's coming out of DAEP, they would put him in DAEP here.
Okay.
And then we would be asking them, okay, if this isn't working, then we need to go to the next level and start looking for the one-on-one. I think that's all Mr. Trout's trying to say.
Okay, thank you.
And Judge, this is a hard case because we're in a situation where, as Ms. Grammer and Ms. Zavala stated, PMC to the department, or is the child's been in the care of the department for the last 2 years. Is he any further along or regressed any? Can the department do anything for the Welches that cannot be searched on their own or set up on their own without the department involved? And is it, are we in a situation where we need to take PMC, or do we need to supply the parents with the ability to do the same thing that we would be doing? I don't know that bringing the child back and forth for visits, it seems to be most his more explosive behaviors lately have been either right before he came for a visit or right after he got back from a visit. And I understand the statements of when he's home on a visit right now, he's on vacation, or is he just happy to be home and with his parents? Those are they're hard things for anybody to answer without him answering those. But it seems to be that the last couple instances have been more after he goes back to Houston. My understanding of the child is he wants to come home. And we had as Mr. Zavala said a while ago, we had a big push around spring break to get the child home, but that was an agreed monitored return step up that was done in December, that he would be placed back in the home at spring break. And from my understanding, I wasn't involved in those conversations directly, but my understanding is parents didn't want him placed home and weren't ready for him to be placed home at that time, is why that did not happen. The department is trying to get the child back to his family. And they think that right now that is the best thing for him, is to be with the family, because that is where he wants to be. We won't know whether his behaviors will change or get worse or get better unless that happens. I mean, he just says he wants to be home. He is not telling us how he's going to act when he gets there. And we do know he's got behaviors, but I don't know that the department is in any better situation right now to offer him anything that the parents can't with their assistance. We know what all programs need to be try to be set up. He could stay in care and never get better. He could come home and never get better. But keeping him in limbo, wanting to come home and keep going back to placement, I don't think is any less traumatizing than if he gets to go home and see how it works.
Well, and Judge, if I may, in response to that, I think that there is a major issue with safety in regards to his best interests. The fact that he has been aggressive and assault, he's had over 29 major episodes that I've counted through the notes that I've received from Starry, where he has aggressively flipped tables, refused to get into vehicles, had hurt himself inside a vehicle, throwing computers, self-harming, punching walls. And there were 2 incidents on that one day on 123. He can't go more than a day without having some sort of disruptive, violent behavior and involving most of these also involve restraints by staff at Starry. And maybe Alicia can describe this, but they have a staff that is 24/7, 1-to-1, and this kiddo is still hurting himself. He broke his clavicle before spring break. I would believe that it wouldn't be prudent or safe to put a child from a high intense level RTC back into a home where they do not have 24-hour care or 1-to-1 ratio for monitoring the safety of this child. And I would feel it would be very scary, I think, if I was this child's parent, to have him at AISD where he could severely harm another child. He will go into, he'll probably end up at TDCJ or TJJD. That's my fear for Thomas.
And Judge, in response to that, I do understand that. Of course, the incidents that Ms. Grammer was talking about, the 29 incidents, happened while he was in care and all of this was happening. So it's not like care is working for him right now. He's still
with the notable exception that it is a facility which has staff, has somebody on duty who is awake who is responsible for his care
Yeah.
on a 24-hour a day basis. I mean, it's akin, I'm sorry, this is akin to having an aging parent that you can no longer care for on your own. Their needs have surpassed what you can do in your own private home or in their private home. Your ability to physically move them, to bathe them, to clothe them, to make sure they don't get bed sores, to make sure that, whatever those needs are. But it's very akin to that. And it's why we end up having to place people we love in long-term care facilities, because we're just not equipped to do that. It'd be no different. I mean, if the Welches had an aging parent in the home, if they go off to work during the day and they've got other responsibilities, they're sometimes we're just faced with really, really hard choices like that. I don't think that this child is anywhere near at a level where he could be in a mainstream home with only mom and dad there to handle all this. I think he is way beyond their abilities. I understand from an educational standpoint, they might be able to make the same arrangements for daytime. And, I mean, the law says kids have to be in school, so the schools have to adapt and somehow try to provide what each child in school needs. So I understand that won't be particularly different, other than I hate to see us have to start the process all over again here, or even have an accelerated time frame in which to get something accomplished. If we're moving from DAPE up to here, and we've only got 20 days left of DAEP, that doesn't give much time. We're not here today on a final. I mean, we've got a final set for June 4th. I mean, my feeling is we kick the can down the road one more time. Let's see if we can't get Houston to possibly give us that in a written plan. I don't know when his DAEP expires. Anybody know the answer to that?
Ms. Prater, do you know when his 45 days is up?
He got it on 3/6.
It would be the last week of school with, I think, 1 or 2 days of a buffer.
Okay.
Well,
I think we write it.
Are we about 30 days? I'm sorry, Judge. Ms. Prater, are we about 30 days in it now?
I believe he started it after spring break, if my memory serves me correctly. So we're about like a week off from when he was given DAP.
Okay.
He did serve some suspension time prior to that, but I believe we're about under 30 days in.
Well, I think let's write it out and see if we can't possibly get something from Houston. I mean, if the semester comes to an end and he's, I don't know what they do with that. If they just say, okay, we put him back in mainstream, we put him at base level, for 2 days until the semester ends, and then we don't have to do anything. I mean, I don't know what the answer is going to be.
I have a quick question. So in HISD, there is a program called Homebound, where it's a very difficult program to get into, but if you get into it, then it is something that you have to be ordered into, and they have to supply a teacher to come out to your home to teach the child. Does Amarillo offer anything that's like that possibly we can write into his ARD? Or what other options does Amarillo service, like things that we can write into his ARD that when he does return home, he'll have some type of success?
I'm sure that the school district here is required to have that offered for children that are medically homebound or for some other reason are homebound.
Okay.
Like I said, the law says children are supposed to be in school. So, it puts the impetus on school districts to meet that need.
Well, and Judge, we didn't want this to be a final at all. We just wanted to make sure you, the judge, knew all the things that we've been struggling with. I feel like we've made a group effort out of all of this, and I'm grateful for the fact that everybody has cared so much about Thomas. And the main goal is just to keep him safe and not hurt himself or hurt anybody else. And I mean, the things that we can do moving forward are limited, but I mean, we can see what we can do. We just didn't want something to happen before we had our final that would cause an emergency situation.
Well, I think we just write it out and see what we can get done before we have to have that final hearing and make a final disposition. I think I have a pretty good idea of what that's probably going to look like, but I think let's give it till June 4th and see what maybe can get done in Houston. That might help us if we transition him here. I'm not convinced that he's ready to be transitioned, and the therapist is not logged in, and unfortunately I've already got people that have been waiting for a half an hour for another hearing, so I can't wait on the therapist. I would love to have some therapeutic recommendations. Is he making progress? Is he not making any progress? That would be very beneficial to know, for this final hearing that's coming up in June.
We'll look into that, Judge. I'll have my clients talk to Mr. Burrell or email. That's how I got some of that stuff previously.
I don't know whether there's any avenue to get him into any kind of equine therapy or something there in Houston. I mean, I know it exists. I'm confident it exists in a lot of places in Houston, but whether or not he could be transported to something like that, if he seems to respond well to animals, it might be something to look into. At the same time, his sometimes very, erratic or very spontaneous type behaviors could present a real danger for him to be in equine therapy. So, I don't know whether he's a total candidate for that or not.
And I bet Mr. Burrell could guess on that one. He'd be able to be the best person probably.
So anyway, I'm going to have to say for today, we're going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and we'll continue his placement. And we are set for June 4th on a 9:00 docket. I guess we'll see where we're at that point, or if there's anything else that you guys have worked out. But I just can't see that we're ready to pull that trigger today.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. We appreciate you.
All right. As far as the order's concerned, find a continuing danger to return the child home at this time, and everybody's using reasonable efforts to get him home. It's clearly not a lack of that. So, all right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Judge. Thanks, Daniel. Welch's, I'll call you after my hearing today in Randall County.
And I think I'm pretty sure we appointed Ms. Sapien just based on the facts in the case. Mom didn't actually fill out her
Correct, Judge. I think
our normal statement of procedures. It was just based on the mental health issues and.
Yes, my mom's admitted some stuff.
Yeah. So Ms. Sapien, have you had any contact?
No, I have not, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I was appointed as Ms. Davidson's guardian ad litem. I've reached out to her at the numbers given to us, and I haven't had a response either.
So with anybody with the department, has she reached out to check on the child or to get any updates or any information on the child?
Your Honor, I spoke with her on Friday and talked to her about attending court, and she said she would. I told her that as soon as I got the link that I would send it to her. I've done that today. I know that Michelle Silva with St. Francis actually spoke with her in person. I believe that was Friday also. I don't know the contents of their discussion, but I did speak with Michelle and she told me that. I have not been able to reach Jessica today by phone, text, or email. She's not responding to me at this point.
Ms. Riggs, do you know where Ms. Silva was able to talk to her in person? Was it at the office or at her apartment? Where was it?
To my knowledge, it was at Jessica's apartment.
So we know a physical location. We just haven't been able to get her served.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it,
and I will say that at her eviction hearing on the 2nd, she was evicted, and after today, she will be physically removed from the property.
Well, we're just at a point where we're gonna have to move forward on this. I'm looking to see if we've got just even a little bit more time. Okay, she has a phone then, and she has an email address
Yes, Your Honor.
and access, obviously, to text messaging.
Yes.
All right. Well, she's been given the link. This is the second setting on this. And I believe she was given that information on the first setting as well.
Correct.
And I assume she's been given the information on how to contact her attorney.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then, Mr. Trout, we're gonna go ahead and move forward so you can call your first witness.
Yes, ma'am. Judge, have we
No,
actually
you
called
haven't
the
called
case
the
and
case
announced?
yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, we'll call cause number set for our adversary hearing. This is the second setting on this. We are conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. We've had some discussion prior to my calling the case about mom's knowledge of the hearing today. She's been given the link. She has access to a telephone, email, text messages. She's been given the information regarding her court-appointed attorney, Ms. Sapien, and her court-appointed guardian ad litem, Ms. Lucero, and has not appeared at the first setting or on this reset. So we're going to go ahead and proceed. So, Mr. Trout, you can call your first witness.
Yes, ma'am. I call Mercedes Hodge. How are you familiar with that case?
I was an investigator sent out on March 16th when it was called in.
How did the department become involved in this case?
The police officers reached out to the department due to concerns for a 6-month-old.
Okay. And did the department have any involvement with this family before that call out?
Yes.
Okay. And in which way was that?
There was also there was already an investigation going on.
Okay. Were you involved with that investigation at all?
No.
What was the intake called in for?
The one on the 16th?
Yes, ma'am.
That one was called in due to Miss Davidson having a mental health issue going on that made her go to the hospital, and there was no one to care for the 6-month-old.
Okay. Were you able to meet with the mother?
Yes.
And did you have a discussion with the mother about what was going on?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She kept telling me that she was struggling with her with physical issues and being in pain, as well as mental health issues, which was preventing her and making it hard for her to care for Joshua.
Okay. Did she state any specific diagnosis or issue she was having?
She did say she had a TBI, which I think is a traumatic brain injury. She talked about her ears having pain to where his cries would cause her to, have pain in her ears. And then she talked about bleeding for a couple months.
Okay. Did mom state at any time that she didn't believe she should have Joshua?
Yes, she did.
Did she state that she can't maintain her own health?
Yes, she did.
And that she can't take care of Joshua?
Correct.
Was mom admitted into the hospital at that time?
No, she was not.
Since that day, have you had any contact with mom?
No, I have not.
Have you attempted to reach out to her to try to get in touch with her throughout this investigation?
Yes.
Okay. But you just were never able to make any more contact?
Right. And I did go in person, phone calls, everything. And then I was told by Lois, the FBSS worker, that she had made contact, and I was told, or she was told, that mom did not want to have contact with me.
Okay. Did they state why she didn't want to have contact with you, or just didn't want to?
As far as I know, she just didn't want to. She wasn't interested. She wanted to speak to her attorneys first.
Okay. Did mom tell you who dad was?
She mentioned the name Henry Royce, but she didn't have any information for him, any other information for him.
Where did she state he lives?
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
So out of state.
Mm-hmm.
But she had no phone number, no address, no any other type of contact information other than a name?
Right. And she said she had not been in contact with him since Joshua's birth.
Did she state whether he was aware of the child or not?
Yes, she said he was aware that she was pregnant, but after, not that, where she was or that the child was born.
Did she state why she believes he is the father?
That's who she was with at the time she found out she was pregnant.
She was in Santa Fe before she came to Amarillo.
Correct.
Do you believe at the time it was in the best interest of the child to remove the child due to mom being in a hospital, nobody be able to take care of them, and no contact information for the father?
Yes.
Where is mom from?
I believe Michigan.
Does she have any other CPS cases or prior CPS history?
Yes, in Michigan. Yes.
Is it Michigan or Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Okay. And you were able to talk to people up there?
Yes.
Okay. I
talked to her family members there.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I talked to her family members there.
So she does have family that's aware of this case?
Yes.
Okay. Does she have custody of any of her children in that area?
No.
Do we know, are they just placed with family? Or are they in foster care? Or her rights been terminated? Do we know the answers to those?
Her rights have been terminated to all of those children, and they are with different family members.
Okay. Do we know how many children she has?
Joshua, according to her mother, Joshua would be her 7th child.
And so you're saying she does not have custody rights to any of the 6 previous children?
Correct.
Did it appear from what you found out through your investigation that mom has been dealing with some mental health issues even while she was in Minnesota?
Yes, there is currently a warrant, a mental health warrant out for her at this time out of that state.
Out of that state. Do we know how long that warrant's been out? I mean, has it just been in the last 6 months or last year or so? Do we know?
I do not know.
But you did talk to somebody that it is an active warrant right now?
Yes.
Do you believe it was in the best interest of the child to remove? Ms. Hodge?
Sorry. Can you say that again? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Do you believe it was in the best interest of the child to remove?
Yes.
After removal, were visitations set up for mom?
Yes, I was informed of one visit.
Okay. And mom did make that visit?
Yes.
And so mom is completely aware of the case and the removal?
Yes.
Was drug screens performed on the child?
Yes, there was a hair follicle drug screen completed.
And what were the results of that? Have you got those back?
Yes, Joshua was positive for meth.
So Joshua's how old? Ms. Hodge,
can you repeat that, please?
Yes, ma'am. How old? You said Joshua is 6 months old. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he was positive for methamphetamines?
Yes.
Does that go to the further conclusion that it was in the best interest of the child to remove?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Sakian?
No questions, Judge.
Ms. Lucero?
Just a couple, Your Honor. Ms. Hodge, whenever you spoke with Jessica about the removal and what was going on in her life. Was she coherent, do you believe? Was she able to communicate with you? Was she understanding what you were telling her? In your opinion?
Yes, we had a conversation back and forth. I will say towards the end of the conversation, she did say that she, her pain was increasing. And so 3 times I did ask her if she wanted me to leave. And she refused. She wanted to continue the conversation. And then by the 3rd time I went ahead and decided to leave.
Okay. And then you stated that she was admitted to the hospital. Is that correct?
She was in the emergency room and she was not admitted.
She was not admitted. She just went to the ER. Okay. And do you know, was she going to the emergency room due to pain she was experiencing or mental health issues, or do you know?
Yeah, she was in pain and she, according to the officer, she told them that she just could not cope.
And this mental health warrant that's out of Minnesota, do you know what that is? That just a warrant for her to be placed into some type of treatment facility, or do you know?
The only clarification that I got on that was that they believe that she's a danger to herself and others, and so I didn't get any more information than that.
I'll pass the witness.
Right, and Ms. Ballard?
Ms. Hodge, when you were speaking with Mother, was she able to identify anyone here locally that could either assist her or could take the child?
The only person that she mentioned was a neighbor, but the neighbor had told me that she was not interested in that.
Okay. So there was no way in this case to set up some sort of safety plan or somebody to help supervise. There wasn't anybody available.
Correct.
When the child was removed, was the condition of the home also a concern?
Yes, when I had got there after the child had been with the neighbor, but the officers before had said that the child did have feces on him. And when I went into the home, there was animal feces on the floor. It was very cluttered, hard to walk through and get around.
And so for a crawling 6-month-old, not a safe situation.
Correct.
I pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Trout, anything further from this witness?
Just one quick question. Ms. Hodge, did Mom ever drug screen for you?
No, the only drug screen that I had was the one that was performed with her being taken to the emergency room.
So did Mom ever admit or deny any drug use to you?
To other people, but not to me directly.
Okay. And other people, hospital staff, are we talking officers?
Yes, to the hospital staff, she admitted meth use, and then to the officer, she admitted marijuana use.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Ms. Hodge?
No, Your Honor.
No.
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Trout, any further witnesses today?
Yes, ma'am. We'd call Lois Ricks, Your Honor.
All right.
And how are you familiar with the case?
I was the family-based worker for the family since early October.
And this is the prior investigation that was called in?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have a good relationship with the mother, Jessica?
I felt like I did.
Okay. Since we have been in our current case, in the removal case, and I know we talked about this a little earlier, but we weren't on the record when we did. Have you been able to make contact with mother since we've been in the removal case?
Yes, I've had several phone conversations with her, and she had been responding to text messages from time to time.
Okay. And when was your last conversation or contact with Mom?
It would have been Friday. I believe that would be the 5th.
Okay. And were you able to let Mom and the mother know about the hearing today?
Yes, I spoke with her that day as well as previous days when I was able to reach her. I sent her a text message and an email with the link to today's hearing and reminded her again just before court.
Okay.
Can y'all hold on? We've lost Ms. Taylor.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking just to be sure, Mr. Track, can we maybe back up just a couple of questions?
Yes, ma'am.
If we can just cover a little, I know it's covering the same ground, but I'm not sure exactly where we lost her. So.
Yes, ma'am. If I can remember a couple of questions back. Ms. Ricks, you said you had been able to contact mom during the removal case, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And your last contact was on April 5th, Friday?
correct.
And since then, have you been able to send her the links for today's hearing?
Yes. I received it this morning, so I sent it to her, both via text message as well as via email.
Okay. And this is our second setting on this, is that correct?
Yes,
Were y'all able to send the links to her for the first hearing also?
yes, we did. I believe several people actually did at that time. I don't know who else sent them this time.
And mom didn't appear at the first setting either, did she?
Correct.
But through your efforts and efforts of some other people, mom was made aware of the hearings today.
Correct.
Has mom responded to you since you sent those today?
No, I haven't gotten any messages from her since then.
Okay. But mom is aware that there is a removal case
Yes,
and that there are hearings being held.
correct.
I'll pass witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sapien, any questions?
Just a couple, Judge. Ms. Briggs, do you know if Jessica received my contact information?
Yes, I provided her with your contact information myself.
Okay. And was she also provided with Miss Lucero's contact information?
Yes, I provided her with her contact information also.
Did you do that once or more than once?
Multiple times. I wrote your number down on a business card. I also texted her both of y'all's information a couple of different times.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Okay. And Ms. Lucero?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Sabala?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Trott, anything further for Ms. Ricks?
Nothing further from Ms. Ricks, Your Honor.
All right.
And no further
Okay.
witness.
All right. Department rest.
Department rest.
All right. Ms. Sapien, any witnesses to present today?
No witnesses, Your Honor. I'll rest.
And Ms. Lucero, anything else today?
Your Honor, I don't have any witnesses, but there's a couple of things I'd like to say to the court, if that's okay at this time.
Sure.
I know that the likelihood is high that the department will be named temporary managing conservator of the child. There's been testimony and in the reports that Ms. Davidson, suffers from mental health issues. And so I would just ask that, I know that as they move forward, they're going to put together a family service plan, but I would ask that, I know sometimes we're trying to get the, folks in there to start working their services and things like that, but I would just ask that it, a priority be made just to get her the mental health that she needs first. And that be the priority and she not be overwhelmed with all these other services, Your Honor. So that's what I would ask.
All right. Ms. Zavala, anything to present today or just a recommendation?
I rest. But it is my recommendation that the child remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department. He's doing well in placement. I think there are some leads on some potential ICPC placements that I think are being addressed. But I do believe it's in his best interest to remain in the temporary managing conservatorship.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Zavala. Okay. I will find the evidence is sufficient to name the Department of Family and Protective Services as the temporary managing conservator of the child. I will find that there would be a continuing and ongoing danger to the child to return the child home to the mother today. We have, of course, very little information about the father at this point in time and wouldn't even know where to place the child with him. I would expect, of course, the department to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. And I agree with Ms. Lucero that obviously the first place we need to really start with mom is mental health, but that may also include a component of drug treatment. Very concerned that the child tested positive for methamphetamine and apparently had been basically in the care of Ms. Davidson, that as far as we know. So I just urge everybody to keep reaching out to her, and let's see if we can't get her started with, services focused on those things, at least at this point in time. She's obviously, as of today, got a housing situation. Maybe she's already remedied that. I don't know, but very concerned that she might be homeless as well at this point in time. That's obviously not going to help anything or improve anything. I guess I suggest that St. Francis start looking for her maybe at one of the shelters in town if we don't get a response from her fairly soon. So I'll see everybody back for the status hearing May 14th, 2024. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. And I appreciate everybody's efforts.
Thank you, Judge.
I know these are hard.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Thank y'all so much. Everybody have a good rest of your afternoon, and probably won't see any of you guys tomorrow, but so y'all have a nice day tomorrow. I'll see you Thursday. Unless anybody wants to go out to Farwell with me tomorrow. So
I'll see you tomorrow, Judge.
Oh yeah, you will. That's right.